Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was betrayed by his family and becomes Saiyan with Nean movie. Before we start, please go support PeladosapitoMedina for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 1. A small brown-haired boy was seen, with many bruises on his body, some scratches on his arm, and above all, he was almost covered in blood and had deep cuts on various parts of his body. I'm surprised that a human being can withstand a lot of blows and cuts, as well as a magic attack, said a girl with blood-red hair and blue eyes. The little boy just looked at her with lifeless eyes. That doesn't matter, Ria's after all, it's a disgrace to the Hayato family, said a girl with short black hair. Sona is right, tell me Alex what you want to do to your brother. Excuse me, I shouldn't call him that, Ria said with some annoyance. Then a boy with brown hair comes out, but on his left arm, more specifically, his hand had something. You don't even have to call me brother, thanks to Ria's and Sona, we opened our eyes. We only had one obstacle in our family, Alex shouted to throw a punch at little Chestnut, which made more blood come out, in that 2 adults came out. My son has it, you were just a big mistake, said a brown man, kicking him in the face like a child, and then the woman approached him. I regret having you in my belly, it's useless, he told him to take out a knife and bury it in his stomach and break the upper part where you could hold the knife, leaving him the part that he had buried in him. The little one only gave scream of pain. Riaz, it's time to throw out the trash, Sona said seriously, and she just agreed. Come on, it's time for the portal to open, Riaz said, and the others agreed. So they grabbed little one where he was and dropped him, while they began to drag him on the ground, not caring if it hurt him. So everyone gets into a car and goes to a forest and enters the deepest part of the forest, which even seemed like it was lost. Where does that portal appear? Alex said with some curiosity. It comes out at midnight, it must be time, said Riaz seriously, while everyone waited for that portal to open, and it didn't take long for them to wait, since sparks began to appear, and from there a large portal opened that seemed to have no end, and its color was red like blood. It's time, Sona said with a smile. To approach with a body, but they left it near the portal. Goodbye, Issei, they said everything, well you laughed and sounded towards the magic circle, to throw your powers at it, thus entering the portal. For one moment to the next, the portal closes completely. Well, what do you think if we leave this place? Said Alex, and everyone nods to leave there without knowing that in the future he would regret it. Inside portal. Issei could be seen falling into the portal where he had thrown him. He thought that this had no end, but then he saw how the exit was finally finished, so he crossed the exit, but he saw that he was going to fall to a great height, so he hoped until finally mine fell. Issei only gave a cry of pain, as he felt like all his bone that was already shattered, had been shattered more than normal, so he closed his eyes, as a sign that he was unconscious or maybe dead, but nearby a very strange creature approaches. But that same creature takes Issei's body to a place, so the creature took Issei to a town, an older man, but the same appearance that the creature had, he had it. Dad, look, I found this human child, said the little one. I see, but his whole body is hurt, his bone is broken, and he has something embedded in his stomach, but above all, he lost a lot of blood for several days. I'm surprised that he's still alive, said that creature with a serious tone. You're going to cure him, the little boy asked his father, and he just agreed. So those strange creatures began to help Issei's body and heal him completely. They even took out the knife that Issei had in his stomach. 2 weeks later. Issei was seen beginning to wake up, and when he woke up completely, to his surprise his body was healed without a scratch, but in front of him there was a mirror, and he saw himself, but his surprise increased, since his appearance changed completely, he saw that there were clothes next to him, so he decided to put on those clothes, and saw himself again in the mirror. I don't look bad, in fact I look better than before, the little boy said to himself, but then he heard the door open, revealing the 2 creatures. Pioneers. Issei said seriously as he put himself in a fighting pose. Even though he doesn't know how to fight, he was going to defend himself no matter what. Calm down kid. My name is Epona, he is my son Barry, he was the one who helped you, and we were able to save you, said Epona, now known, calmly, and telling him how his son found him, and how he had saved his life. I see. I appreciate that you saved me, but I have to go, Issei said seriously, but he was stopped. It seems that you don't know how to fight, you're just a human, how did you fall into this dimension, he said seriously. That's not your problem, Issei said seriously while looking at Epona seriously. I won't be able to keep you forever, but let me tell you, this is the only village that can speak, where it can shape your life, but out there are the worst monsters with great destructive power, and the only thing that can eat you out there, it will be what kills, even themselves. He told him what they were like out there and how he could stay, living better without staying. I can think about it a little, he told them, and they just nod and leave him alone, thinking about whether to stay or leave. After all, he no longer had anything. Not even his life was worth it in that world where he was. But to take revenge for the great harm they had done to him, he did not want to become like them. He knew that the day of his punishment would soon arrive. He saw in a corner, there was the knife that the lady had buried in him. He decided to go out and see that there was a large group of that race. "What do you decide, do you go or stay?" he said with some curiosity. "I'm staying," I answer him seriously, and he just nodded, but he had a smile on his face. "Where you can train," said Issei, and Epona just stares at him. "Wherever you want," I answer, and Issei just nods and they walk away. "If you want to get out of here, every 13 years they open that portal." He told him to leave there. Issei listens to that and he is surprised, but he still continued walking. But now he only had one thought: to get out of that place where his only goal in his life. 3 months later. Issei's progress was very incredible since now he can defeat that race with ease. Even the strongest fell to him, but at that time, Issei got along with all the people of that place and even became friends with Barry. Let's say they were best friends. Everything was peace and tranquility. Issei was seen entering with some weights, even his muscles had increased a little. That's when Barry comes all upset. "What's wrong with you?" Issei said seriously, looking at his best friend. "There are many monsters killing most of us," Barry said, all upset. Issei listened to this and was surprised and decided to go quickly, since it was not that far away. When he arrived, he saw that everything was destroyed and many dead bodies. He saw the responsible people who did all that. He was filled with so much hatred that a great speed crossed one of them and blew another's head off, and the last one, to see what happened to his partner, launched himself towards Issei, but he was already expecting it and a single kick broke it in two. "Dad finds you okay?" Barry shouted as he went to where his father was, and he just hugged him, but at that moment someone threw a ray that made a mountain of rock fall, and Issei went to see what was going to fall on Barry and his father. He went to start breaking the rock, but his hand was already full of blood until he finished. "Get out of there," said Issei seriously with his fighting pose, ready without attacking by surprise, but out of nowhere someone the same size as Issei comes out, but this one had 2 horns coming out on his head. "Who the hell are you?" Issei shouted. "Someone who must be afraid of you, disgusting human, but my name is Chilled," said the already well-known Chilled, who went where Issei was, but he went at a great speed that not even Issei noticed, and they sent him flying away. "What great power," Issei said to himself, to look above him and see that he was chilled with charged energy. Without further ado he launched it, but Issei moved quickly to avoid receiving it and see that he had made a large crater. "I'm going to die, my training didn't work," Issei thought with fear, but out of nowhere he felt a pain in his stomach and vomited blood, and to see who was responsible. "You didn't see it coming," he said with a mocking smile, while Issei fell to his knees. "Die was the only thing," Chilled said, to create a ball of power and ready to kill Issei, but then I heard someone shout Issei's name. "Leave him alone, Issei is my best friend." "No, he's my brother," was what Barry said. Issei listens and is surprised. "What a bothersome race," he answered and threw the power at Barry, sending him flying and hitting Barry on a large rock. "Barry!" Issei shouted next to Barry's father, but Barry's father went to see how his son was. "Damn, I'm ashamed," he said to himself as he hit the ground. "If only I had a little more power," he said to himself while hitting the ground with his fist, but the sky began to fall lightning, exactly 2 lightning bolts. Fall winged with Issei. But his hair began to change color, even his eyes and a yellow aura began to surround him. Issei just stood still, just seeing Chilled's damn smile. But that didn't annoy him anymore. "Just to give a," he screamed loudly, and his hair became permanently blonde and his eyes emerald. "But why do you look different?" he said seriously, but inside he felt familiar with someone, but he didn't know who. "I will not forgive you for anything in this world," he said with hatred, then disappeared and appeared in front of Chilled and gave him a big beating and grabbed him by the horns and threw him into the air. "It is impossible that someone like you is beating me. Disappear along with this town," he screamed in desperation, stopping his hands together and making a big ball of power. "It will be you who will die," Issei said while also creating a sphere of power. So both of them launched their power. It seemed that they both had the same strength, but Issei's power was gaining on him. Because my power is receding." "Who is your human?" he screamed in despair to see Issei's eyes, and he opened his eyes in surprise. You seem like him. You became the Super Saiyan," shouted Chilled, surprised and terrified, but that carelessness increased Issei's power even more and he was able to kill Chilled. Issei went to where Epona and Barry were on his arm. "Please don't die," Issei said as he looked at his best friend, or rather the only person or being he could call a brother. "The Hana, it means family, and your family never abandons you, nor forgets you," was Barry's only words before she died. Issei only cried in silence. Now she knew that she once had me as a family, and now he gave her away. "Issei, please kill me, I want to be next to my son," said Barry's father. Wanting to be next to his son, Issei just acknowledged, but he had tears in his eyes. "Thank you for everything," was what Issei said to cross Barry's heart and thus dying quickly and painfully. Issei just takes the body of both of them and buries it and puts the name of each one, and he just sits on a rock. I'm going to miss you a lot, Issei said to himself, but now he had to survive for many years for the portal to open again. I wonder what he said about him and what happened to my hair, why it changed color, especially that they were that strange power. I only heard him call something Super Saiyan, and something that seemed to me like someone. Now Issei had a lot of doubts, but I was going to solve it soon. In another part of that dimension, you could see a boy who was less than 10 years old. His hair was black as night and eyes the same color. What was that power? They were almost the same as mine. It was just good energy, the little boy said to himself with a cold voice. It must be my imagination, he said to himself as he entered his dig again. In another part of the world, an adult man was seen with a smile on his face as he had felt good energy, and years ago he had felt evil energy, and that only means two things. Finally, the two legendary human children were born thanks to you. I can get out of here. In his voice, there was malice and eyes as red as blood itself, and hair was silver and pointed, but two small horns on his chin stood out. Chapter 2. It had been a year since Issei had awakened that strange power, and luckily for him, he could now control it. It was as if that power had been born with him, but 7 months ago something strange happened to him, since he was bald with 30 monsters, but in the end those monsters were winning, until he released more power than normal, and his hair had grown a little. So he had a very destructive power and was able to save his life. This is how he discovered that he could increase his power even more, of course in a desperate way. Thus, 2 more years will pass since Issei was able to get new transformations. He called her Super Saiyan 3, since she had very long hair. So 3 years passed. Every year she was able to unlock new transformations. Now her hair was red. He called her like the Super Saiyan god, but she was able to unlock her other transformations, like phase 1 and 2, even 3. Thus Issei managed to perfect all his skills. Who would have imagined that that place would have great power, but still, he continued with his training. So another 3 long years passed, where Issei was able to unlock new transformations and new abilities. Now his hair was not yellow nor red, now it was blue. He was able to get it when he had to fight 3,000 monsters at the same time, but he was able to beat him with his new transformation. But just like everything else, he was able to get the second and the third. For Issei, he felt like he was the most powerful in that place. Almost no one was his opponent, but the numbers were very different, since sometimes he had 8 or 9,000 warriors, huge numbers, but that was life. Of Issei, every second, minute, hour, day, month and year Issei had to fight so that world would not die. But to Issei's surprise, he almost lost his life in that world, since a single monster had a very destructive power. Even all his transformations lost his life, and being on the verge of death, a miracle appeared, and that miracle was that he was able to unlock a new power, and was able to kill that beast, but he was able to master that power to 100%. There was only 1 year left until Issei could leave here, but he was not going to waste that year, since thanks to that year, he was able to unlock a new transformation, which surpassed all his transformations, his body. He was filled with silver hair, but left his chest exposed and a monkey's tail. Issei was finally able to control his last transformation. It took him a long time like all his transformations, but they were not impossible, since he was able to achieve it, and now he only needed to wait for the portal to open to return to his dimension, and he could only return to his base state and decrease all his power. He seemed like a simple human. In another part of that dimension, a 23-year-old boy was seen, with black hair and eyes of the same color. It's time, all my training is paying off now. I'm going to eliminate him like you eliminated my parents, said the boy with a voice that was cold and at the same time full of hatred. Now only the myth on one side of him, as a sign that I was seeing another place. Who is it that was accompanying me all this time, and why did he confuse me with someone when I transformed into Super Saiyan? The boy said to himself with the same voice as always. He tried to look for him, but he never found him. He always appeared. He was going out of place or hiding his power. But he was somewhat sure. He was nothing but sure. The guy who had accompanied him was not weak at all. After all, he seemed to have the same power as him. But his thoughts were cut short when sparks began to fly and a portal opened. It was the same one that had taken him 13 years ago. With Issei, the same thing had happened to him. A portal began to open, and he knew one thing was the portal that had brought him here, and now he knew he could get out of here. But Issei looked elsewhere, or more specifically, he looked at a distant place, since he knew one thing: he was never alone in that place. Someone was accompanying him, but he was not going to risk it, so he always left or hid all his power from him. Issei and the unknown boy. It's time to leave this place, but someday I'm going to find you, both said with a serious voice, since they knew that each one could interfere with their plans. So both crossed their portals and went to the end of that dimension, which was only called the world of trembling. Now both were going to have a single objective: to meet and fight who is stronger, knowing without that their future fight will awaken someone powerful. In the real world, Issei was seen coming out of a portal with his battle clothes, who he had designed himself, or rather they were the same clothes who the person considered a father had given him when they were little. I feel various demon energies, Issei said to himself, but now he didn't care about that now, or rather he didn't care about it at all at that moment. I must get a house, Issei thought with some laziness, but continued his way down the entire mountain, which brought back bad memories, until he finally found the road, but he saw what the houses were like, although some houses had changed as he remembers, so he walked, until he saw a group of 5 people walking very late at night, so he decided to follow them, until they reached a 2-story house. Issei, with great curiosity, went into my house and saw an illuminated room, until he saw on the table that it was full of a lot of money and in another corner as well. Until Issei decides to open the door, and what was inside, he takes out his weapons and points it at Issei's head. "Who are you?" said one of the men. "Look, so I don't ruin your business, give me $5 million and I'll leave you alone, and if you don't, I'll take all your money," said Issei, giving him his options. "Don't make me laugh, kid, there are more than $700 million here," said another man, and I decide to shoot him, but Issei grabs the bullet to everyone's surprise. "I told him the good way," he told him, and Issei disappears and appears in front of the men, and I decide to knock them all out. "Well, I'll take everything," said Issei, putting everything in a trash bag and some briefcases, until he could finally save all the money. So Issei called the police and told them that there were some criminals and gave them the location where they were. So Issei left, so that he wouldn't find them, so Issei left where he could find a big house where he could live and buy clothes, since he knew that people would look at him strangely and might suspect some demons that were around the city. So he started to rub, or rather he started to fly through the air, so he had 30 minutes flying until he found a house that he really liked and went down. So Issei rang the bell, and without delay a beautiful woman came out to see Issei, who blushed a lot since for her, Issei was very pretty and had enviable muscles. "I want to buy this house," Issei told her, and the girl nods and shows him the whole house, and Issei loved it. "I'm buying it, how much does it cost?" Issei said. "Well, its value is approximately $500,000, said the saleswoman. "I bought it," said Issei, and so Issei gave her a briefcase, who knew how many he had there, and the lady was surprised by the briefcase and saw the bags that Issei had and knew that those were money and quite a lot. This is what everyone did so that the house would be Issei's until they had done everything necessary, and so Issei said goodbye to the saleswoman until Issei was left alone. "Well, I better go to sleep, I haven't slept in a bed for many years," Issei said, going up to his room and leaving the entire bag aside, and so Issei fell asleep deeply. Somewhere else. There was a girl with an excellent body, her hair was red like blood and blue eyes, next to her was a brunette with a serious look, and next to her was a black-haired girl with lenses, her eyes were purple. These were Ria's Gremory, Alex Hayadu and Sona Citri. This was what they were seeing in front of a portal, but that portal had closed, making the 3 sad. Now they knew that Issei was dead, so they left, so that Alex could tell his father that Issei was dead. Somewhere else. Ahahaha, they finally came out, I just hope that one day they will face each other, and with their great powers they can free me, Ziko said with an evil smile and a very terrifying aura. Someday your powers will be mine and only mine, and I will destroy everything, even the dimensions, he said to himself with the same smile. Chapter 3. Issei had gotten up, saw that he had woken up and was a little surprised by the time. Since it was noon, but well, it had been a long time since he had slept in a soft bed. He went to the kitchen to cook a lot of food. When I finished cooking, I brought all the dishes to the table. Bless everything that enters my stomach, Issei said to start eating. Until he finished dinner, he looked in a mirror, saw that he was in his battle suit, he decided to see what he could see in the closet and saw that there was an elegant suit, so he put it on and saw that it looked good on him. So he decided to walk through the streets, but they were the center of women, and he even drooled, just look at Issei, since they were everything a woman wanted. Issei decides to buy a cigarette and start smoking, until he saw 2 people while smoking and felt their aura, they were demons. The black-haired girl was walking next to an albino girl, until the 2 girls saw a boy, but they blushed hard, since the boy was handsome and dashing, so the 2 girls approached him. Ara, what's a handsome boy doing alone here?" said the girl with a flirtatious tone, but Issei only looked at her with his eyes. "My name is Akeno and this is Kaneko, and what is your name?" asked the already known Akeno and the albino Kaneko, but she had no answer. "Maybe you can't talk or you're just being stupid," Kaneko said with an annoyed tone, which made Issei have a cold look. "First, I don't care about your names, and secondly, I never told him to approach me or talk to me, and thirdly and most importantly, be careful how you talk to me or things could go wrong for you," said Issei with a cold and serious tone. Both girls just had a little shiver, something told them that boy is dangerous. "Excuse me, we're leaving," said Akeno, as it appears, it was a big mistake to approach that boy, so they were both leaving, but they both saw the boy for the last time, but Kaneko felt something that the boy was hiding something, but they both knew they left there. Issei decided to go home. But he knew he had to study, but inside it was something he didn't want to do, but he had no other choice, then he was going to see which school he was going to enroll in. In another part of the world. The same boy was seen who had left the dimension, but in front of him was an albino with armor, just like the leader of the demon Xerxes. So you want to join the Cows Brigade? The power you showed me was spectacular, you even surpassed my power, said the albino with a smile, but inside he was happy, since it seemed like he had won the lottery, and literally, he was not going to lose that opportunity to have a powerful ally. Tell me, do you accept me, Rizavum Live and Lucifer, or do you want me to talk to the owner of the circus or not to the clowns? The guy said seriously. Okay, right now you are part of the Cows Brigade, Black said Rizavum with a smile, since he didn't want to have him as an enemy, but as an ally. But remember, you have to look for the demons that killed my parents, and if you don't, I'm going to eliminate you myself, Black said seriously. I know, Rizavum said calmly, but inside he was planning a plan, since he was the one who ordered Black's parents to be killed. So they both went to another place, since Rizavum had other plans and according to the order to investigate who had killed Black's parents. Elsewhere. The Keno and Kaneko had taken them to an old club, but inside everything was arranged and at a desk, there was a girl with red hair and an excellent body. The Keno, why did you take so long? Said the girl. The Keno was late because she wanted to flirt with a boy, but to her surprise, the boy ignored her, Kaneko said, to everyone's surprise. That's true said the girl, and she just nods. Even I was surprised, but he's so handsome said a Keno, with a face of love. Who will be the boy who left a Keno like that? Ria said with a doubt. I took a picture of him while he was smoking, said a Keno showing the photo, blushing at all the girls who were there, since the boy was really attractive. Who could that boy be? Said a blonde with a blush, this girl Asia Argento, a former nun, who had previously been killed by fallen angels. You better leave, you'll just be a normal human said Riaz. Well, I'm leaving, said a blonde, this was Kiba, and so he left that place, followed by a Keno and Kaneko. Well, we're leaving, Alex, Ria said, looking at her fiancé, and he just nodded, seeing the blonde, so the three of them left in that place. The next day. Issei only started to get up just to make himself breakfast. When he finished he did everything he always did, he went to look for an academy where he could study, where no one could bother him, but everywhere he went there was no room for him, so Issei decided to go where he felt demon energy. When she arrived, she saw two black-haired girls, one of them looked at her with a cold look, since she recognized who she was, but she saw that she was talking to two hooded girls, one had orange hair and the other had blue hair, but had a green lock. Sona Sitri and Arena Shidu Issei whispered with great hatred, since two parts of his past were there, who made his life impossible. Issei alone decided to enter that academy, but he passed between the four women, but those same women saw Issei, all handsome and blushing, until the two women left. Excuse me, where are you going? Sona said with a voice of authority, but Issei did not take it into account and continued on his way. Did you not hear what Sona said? She is the president of the student council, said the girl who was next to her, until Issei stopped. I come here only to talk to the owner of the circus, not with his clowns, Issei said calmly, as he continued on his way and left both girls surprised. But the girls who were there began to scream, since another handsome boy was going to study at their academy, but the boys cursed each other for having another handsome boy in their academy. Just like that, the entire academy found out that there was an extremely handsome and attractive boy. Issei went to the director's room, he told him that he wanted to study, so they took several tests, and Issei turned out that he could take classes starting tomorrow, and Issei accepted, and so he left that place and went home. In the old building. Everyone had heard that she was going to see a new student, but no one knew who it was, until Sona arrived and told her about the two exorcists who had arrived and who were going to come tomorrow night, and Riaz agreed to attend to her. Sona, leave that aside, you know who the new student is, Riaz said, and Sona just makes an annoyed face. He's an annoying guy, she said, sounding annoyed as she left the room, and they were planning how they could get revenge for how he had called her and treated her in front of the students. The next day. Issei's first day of class was totally annoying, since all the girls in that academy wanted to be with him, telling him that they were in love with him, including his teacher, but he just ignored him until it was time to leave. When Issei was leaving the academy, he felt someone raise a barrier, so he went to where the barrier was and arrived at an old building. He saw how his ex-brother fought as Arena and the other side, he fought Kiba with a blue-haired girl, and the result was Arena's team, so they talked for a while about the Excalibur swords, and also about a fallen Los Angeles leader, his name was called Kakabiel. Issei decided to leave. He had already heard what was necessary, but on the street he stopped, since a guy in priest's clothes came out of nowhere, and in his hands, he had a sword. Look, I found a disgusting human, the albino said madly, and Issei just stared at him. "You know, I'm going to cut fresh blood with my Excalibur sword," said the boy to launch himself towards Issei, but he dodges him easily. "But that speedy plans to kill me," said Issei with a mocking tone, which made the boy angry. "You'll see that I'm going to kill you," he shouted at him, and now he disappears and appears behind Issei. "I told you, die," he shouted, ready to kill him, but to his surprise, Issei only placed one finger and stopped the attack. "Who the hell are you?" said the albino in surprise, but this time with a serious voice. "Nobody special, scum," said Issei very calmly, but he saw how a magic circle had appeared in the boy's ear, and in a moment it disappeared. "Well, I have to go. But soon I will come for you and cut off your head," the boy said to throw a marble, and a strong light appeared, and when Issei opened his eyes, he saw that the boy was no longer there. "I would have followed you, but I will use you for a while," Issei thought with some seriousness, but with great calm. This is how a week passed. Issei had not encountered any demon, since it always invaded him or just hid, but he had found out that the exorcists and the Gremory and Citri group had joined forces to finish off Kakabiel. But Issei had not been interested in that, that's why he went home to eat everything he could, but out of nowhere he stops eating and looks out a window. "What great power, I imagined it was from that Kakabiel guy. We'll see what those groups have said," Issei standing up from his place and just opened the door and jumped to fly out of his house and arrive at the battlefield. When Issei arrived at the battlefield, he saw how the Citri group made an anti-human barrier and how they all fought against some severe. Issei just watched as he was literally being humiliated as Kakabiel began to fight against the others and was giving him a beating. Issei just looked up, like a white armor, he flew over the barrier and out of nowhere destroyed the barrier, thus giving Kakabiel to beating. Why didn't Kakabiel release more power?" Issei whispered with some curiosity, but as always he didn't care, so he left. The next day. Alex and Asia were walking together, but out of nowhere Alex started to feel pain in his arm and looked up and saw an albino standing at the door. "So you are Alex Haidu," he introduced me, "my name is Vali, and I own the Vanishing Dragon," said the boy named Vali. "I wonder what would happen if they used a magic attack," said Vali, putting one of his fingers on Alex's head, and when he wanted to summon the boosted gear 2 sword he puts it on Vali's neck and the group of Rias appears. "It's you, White Dragon," said Rias with a serious voice, but she knew she wouldn't be able to beat him, she couldn't beat Kakabiel, nor was she going to beat a celestial dragon. "It's better that you hide those swords or you don't want to draw attention," said Vali calmly. Kiba and Zenobia just made a face of annoyance. But out of nowhere Issei crossed in front of them, but for all of them, he continued as if without anything, it seemed that he didn't care about the sword. "Wait, why aren't you surprised?" said Zenobia seriously, and Issei just stops. "Because I don't care who dies or who lives, I have a more important matter," Issei said when he was going to continue on his way. Akeno stops him. "It's you who rejected me," said Akeno, somewhat offended by that night. Like I said, continue with your business," Issei said to leave Hay completely. Vali just left that place, but the Gremory group had a serious face, now they wanted to know who that boy was, but then a magic circle appeared in Ria's ear, she immediately put on a serious and worried face. "We have to go to the underworld. It's being attacked," Rias said, and everyone just agreed, so Rias could make a teleportation circle and go to the underworld. That was seen by Issei, he had heard well, the underworld was being attacked, he was not going to miss that for the world, just to put 2 fingers on her forehead, and out of nowhere it disappears. Chapter 4. The underworld, place of demons, but now it was being attacked by just one guy, who had an angry face, or rather an angry face. I don't know who you are, but I won't pay you for what you're doing," said to a red-haired man, in his hand to create a power of destruction and launch it, but the man only gave him a blow to power as if it were nothing. "He could hit my power, I shouldn't underestimate him," I thought seriously, but then the group Gremory and Citri arrive, but together with Seraphol, Ajuka and Falbium, the 3 demon kings. "Serziches finds you well," said Ajuka with a serious voice, and he just nods. "Rias, it would have been better if they didn't come, listen carefully. We must fight with all our power, he is not someone weak," Serziches said seriously, and they just acknowledged. So Serziches, Ajuka, Seraphol and Falbium stood in front of them and began to raise all their power, that even the underworld began to tremble, and a line of armies came behind them. "Ajuka, if we can't beat him with this power, we'll have to use that," Serziches said seriously, and he just nods, after all, they are both super demons. Until they finished raising all their power and the guy who was in front of the 4 demon kings, he only had a smile. "I must admit that he has great power, that even now I could be in trouble," he said with a smile, but everyone began to feel great power, and they saw that he was the subject. "But I am even more powerful than you damn scum," he told her, so that her body began to rub a golden aura until a scream and her hair turned golden and her eyes an emerald color, not to mention her power had suddenly increased. Issei looked surprised, not because of the battle, but now he knew who the guy was who was looking for him in that dimension, and above all, he now knew who was confusing him when he transformed into the Super Saiyan. But he saw how the four demons were fighting the guy, even the Queen of Surziches, and the Gremory and Citri group joined together, but Issei knew one thing, they were going to lose, and he was right, he saw how the weakest group fell, and that was the Citri and Gremory group, how the soldiers arrived, but they were killed by the guy with great ease. Now only the 5 strongest demons in the entire underworld remained standing. Yes, they are strong, even I am a little tired, I thought that with this power it would be enough, but no, not even with the Super Saiyan phase 2 I would beat him, I already feel like those two have more power than the other two, he thought with a smile, seeing Surziches and Ajuka he knew that those two had great power. Ajuka, it's time, Surziches said seriously, and he just nods, he knew that the city was going to be more than destroyed, and when they wanted to increase their power, the guy steps forward and kicks Falbium, so he flew into a building that took half of it. It's your turn, he said, looking at Serafal, she just closed her eyes, she knew it was the end of her life. Surziches and Ajuka were not going to arrive on time, the Gremory and Citri group were going to see how one of the demon kings was going to be killed. Sister, she screamed with concern and tears in her eyes, as she was going to see her sister being killed. This is what murders my parents, he said, forming a sphere in his hand and pointing it at Ella's head, before they released the sphere of power. The subject felt like someone had grabbed his face and was starting to take him down, until he felt his body made a large crater, in the place where they were. Until the subject had released him and he went into the sky, as a sign that he was waiting for him. Nobody knew who that guy was, but the Gremory group only had their eyes wide open next to Sona and Tsubaki, as a sign that they had recognized him. The one who is doing this, said Riaz, is serious. We don't know, but I have saved the life of the Mag, Serafal, Kiba said seriously. But there were also the Demon Kings, he didn't know if they were an ally or an enemy, but for now, he knew he was on their side for now. Issei only saw how he had left him, but he saw how he had gotten up and began to rub in the air, until he was at Issei's height of him. Who the hell are you, said the guy looking at Issei, in his battle clothes. Now I understand why he always confused me with someone, said Issei very calmly, that made the guy confused. What are you talking about? It's the first time I've seen you, insect, the subject said seriously, but he began to feel how Issei's power was increasing, until his hair changed color, golden like his eyes of the. Everyone was surprised, since both were identical, but the most surprised were Black, now he knew the answer who they were, who was accompanying him in that dimension. Shit, his power is on par, Surziches said seriously, and they just nod. I spent so much time looking for you in that place and you never appeared, but now you appear in this place, Black said with a smile as he walked, and Issei did the same. The guy didn't want to know who was in front of me in that place, but now I know who you are, Issei said, stopping his steps. Black did the same, since they were both in front, lightning came out of his body, while stones it began to rub through the air, but houses began to be destroyed. Brother, the pressure that guy does is strong, said Riaz, who was trying to stand up, but the same thing happened to her group. Not only that, the house was being destroyed by his power alone, Surziches said seriously. To see both subjects, they began to hit each other, but neither of them inserted themselves, but Black gave Issei a strong blow in the stomach, he only spat blood, to then be received by a knee in his face. Black had a smile, but that smile was erased, since Issei had grabbed his leg, to start by smashing him on the ground, repeatedly, and then throwing him into the house. So Black began to destroy the house with just his body, until he saw how some energy spheres were going towards him, he just started hitting her. This alone raised his power more, and he put his hand together and made a sphere bigger than Issei made. Take this, Black shouted to throw all that power at Issei. He saw that a more powerful energy was coming, he just dodged it, so that the same energy destroyed the castle completely, luckily for Falbium who had already taken it out. Black appears in front of Issei, to knee him in the face, then grabs him on her feet and begins to turn around until he crashes Issei into the ground and makes a large crater. But out of nowhere Black detransforms and returns to his base state, but he had some injuries, but he saw how Issei was in his base state. You're strong. I just wanted to check that, nothing more, said Black seriously. What's his name? Issei asked. Black, he answered. Someday we'll see each other again, I'll use all my power to defeat you, Black said seriously. I say the same, Black, said Issei to see how Black left the place, leaving him alone. Issei just crosses his arm, he knew that later he would have problems, but he already knew that he was capable of doing Black. Pioneers? Surziches asked seriously, but Issei didn't answer him. I thank you for saving my life, I thank you, Serafal. I'm not interested, I better get out of here, said Issei, putting 2 fingers on his forehead. Tell me, are you an ally or an enemy? Ajuka said seriously. I'm neither of the two, Issei said to disappear from that place. It would be rebuilding this place again, Surziches said tiredly. Brother, that guy studies at the academy, Riaz said in amazement to everyone in Hay, so Surziches asked Riaz several things. Somewhere else. Shit, I want you to fight with all your power so that you can get me out of this damn prison, Ziko shouted as they raised their great power. But he calmed down from one moment to the next, he knew that one day, they would have to use all their power from him, he could wait hundreds of thousands of years, he could not wait a few more days. In Issei's mansion. He was just eating, when he finished he went to the terrace of his house. There was a beautiful view, the wind made his hair move, only to cross his arm and put on a serious face. I'm not going to tell the truth yet, I'll tell it soon, Issei said to himself. He decided to leave there, he wanted to see other places, so he put his 2 fingers in his head and teleported to another place. Kyoto City. Issei walked through the city with his handsome clothes and with his cigarette in his hand until he stopped and saw a dark street, but he could see that there were 3 men and a blonde girl being cornered by the 3 boys. Issei decided to go. When he arrived he saw that the boys were now looking at him with an annoyed look. It's better that he let you go or else he wants us to kill you, said one of the boys, taking out a gun, something that worried a girl, but Issei didn't say anything and stayed in that place. I warned you. He said to shoot him, but Issei grabbed the bullet to everyone's surprise. The man continued trying to kill Issei, but he only grabbed the bullet until he finally ran out of ammunition. He saw how Issei shredded the bullets he had grabbed. Who the hell are you? Said the 3 scared, but Issei disappears and appears in front and knocks each one out until he sees the woman. There is no point in lying to me, who are you? Issei asked with a serious tone, and the woman just stood up and released her true form. She had taken out 9 tails and some fox ears. My name is Yasaka, a kitsune and leader of the Yaokai faction, the woman introduced herself. I see, I answer, ready to leave. Now who are you? You're not a common human, Yasaka said with some seriousness. My name is Issei, he said as he walked and Yasaka was behind him. I can invite you to my temple, Yasaka said to stand in front of Issei. Well, he answered to follow Yasaka until they reached a temple until Yasaka opened a door and Issei entered, just like Yasaka. Now you can say what I want to know, Yasaka said, and Issei looks at her. I may tell you some things, but I don't promise to tell you everything, I answer, and Yasaka just nods. From where I launched the first question. I'm from Cow City, because I came here because I just wanted to see the city, he told him while he was lying down, and Yasaka sat down. What faction do you belong to? He threw the other question at him. I am not one and I am not going to join any faction either, I answer seriously. I understand, how strong are you? Yasaka asked and Issei just shook his head as a sign that he wasn't going to answer that question, but he saw how Issei stood up. Well, I'm leaving, Issei said to put his 2 fingers in front of his head. Wait, we can't see each other again, Yasaka said, and Issei looks at her, he just nods to leave there, leaving Yasaka alone. Then a soldier arrives and they give him a report saying that the underworld had been attacked. That was a very delicate subject. Elsewhere. Black had a smile on his face, so he could finally see who the guy in that dimension was, but he knew one thing, things were going to get interesting. Chapter 5. Issei had arrived home, he saw that it was very late, he decided to go sleep a little, so he had 3 hours of sleep, even making his own food and breakfast. He was going to stay at home, he knew that if he went to the academy, that demon was going to bother him, and he would discover who they were. So he spent the whole afternoon thinking about what he could do until he decided to go to that kitsune's temple, since she seemed like someone interesting, but above all, a totally beautiful woman, so he puts his finger on her forehead and teleports. Yasaka Temple. She was just sitting, reviewing some papers. She was stressed, she already wanted to leave her position as leader of the Yaokai. She just lowered her head and her fox ear as a sign that she was sad. Issei had appeared in front of her, but seeing her like that, Issei couldn't deny that she looked totally beautiful and adorable. This just walked to where she was. A lot of work, said Issei, and Yasaka heard that voice and looked up at Issei. How could you come in here? Yasaka said, amazed. I teleported, he said very calmly, and seeing a report that caught his attention, and he was shocked until they saw Yasaka. The underworld had been attacked, but not in this way that it is here, said Issei, giving the report to Yasaka, and she just stared at him. This is confidential information, Yasaka said in a serious tone. The boy, who is barely 23 years old, faced the 4 most powerful demon kings. Not even Surziches could stand up to him, said Issei, seriously looking at Yasaka, who stood up. What does that mean, that not even Surziches could defeat him? He is a super demon along with his other friend Ajuka, said Yasaka with a serious tone. You may be right, I do know his strength, but I know very well who he faced. The guy changes the color of his hair to a golden one, Issei said seriously as he took a few steps back. How do you know that? You say that another guy appeared who could have done the same thing, said Yasaka, interested in the conversation. You're right, if I hadn't arrived at that moment, Seraphol Leviathan would already be dead, Issei answered, and he saw Yasaka who had her eyes wide open. Before they said anything, he felt how Issei raised a barrier. For one moment to the next, he felt a great power, and thus Issei transformed. What a great power, I even feel that keeping a very terrifying power, Yasaka thought with fear. Even her leg began to tremble, but Issei did not stop as he began to increase his power more until he reached his other transformation. Yasaka just looked at him in fear. She couldn't believe that a child had such a terrifying power. She saw his hand trembling, she saw Issei, his golden hair with emerald green eyes, and his muscles had increased more. It seemed like them had a god in front of them. This is known as Super Saiyan, said Issei to return to his base state so Yasaka could control the fear he felt before. What's the name of the Super Saiyan? It's the first time I've heard that name, Yasaka said curiously. If I trust you more, I will tell you all my truth, but until now, I will only tell you this: his name is Black. If one day he finds you, it is better that he run away, Issei said seriously, and Yasaka just nodded. Now you can do me a favor, said Issei looking at Yasaka, and she just nods. You could teach me all the kinds of races that live in this world, even the strongest, Issei said, a sign that he didn't know anything about the most powerful existence, and Yasaka just nods. So the couple spent time together. Yasaka had taught him all the kinds of races that lived in the world, but Issei and Yasaka had become great friends, but still, Issei didn't trust anyone yet. Until I found out that there was a meeting of factions. Well, I have to go. Do I want to see how that meeting is held? Issei said with a calm voice, and Yasaka just nodded. Goodbye. Issei said goodbye to transporting himself to where the meeting is. Guo City, meeting place. Surziches had told everything that had happened in hell, amazed by all that, but now he knew that there was a very powerful enemy. But you said there was a guy just like him, Azazel said seriously. He knew that this matter could not be taken lightly. We don't know. I even tried to look for it all over the world, but I couldn't find it, Surziches said seriously, looking at Riaz. I'm sorry brother, but he didn't come to the academy anymore. I think he knew we were going to look for him, Riaz said, but inside she wanted to join him to her clan. It's obvious that he was going to hide when Michael was going to continue talking. Someone was attacking him. When everyone looked out the window, Surziches, Seraphol and Grafia put on a serious, but at the same time very worried face, and the Gremory and Citri group just trembled out of pure fear that was seen by everyone. What's wrong, Surziches? Are you trembling just by seeing Kateria? Azazel said in a mocking tone, but he just denies it. She is not the problem, the real problem is him, said Seraphol with fear, pointing at a black-haired man. That's right, there was black in that place. Azazel, Michael only put on a serious face as he feels the power that this guy was hiding. I feel that he has great power, said Azazel with a serious voice. But I feel in his heart that he only harbors hatred for demons, said the most beautiful seraph in heaven, Gabriel. Be careful, Kiba shouted, seeing how Black launched a powerful attack at him. Altogether they made a powerful barrier. Black, you think I'll kill him, Kateria said with a smile, but he just denies. I still feel their power, they used a large part of their power, plus I'm going to be busy, Black said seriously, but he had a smile on his face. The leaders had come out alive in that attack. Shit, with this attack I have destroyed half the school, Azazel said seriously, looking at Black. I will fight him, said Azazel seriously, but Surziches stops him. That guy has a very strange transformation, but increasing his hitting power, it would be better if we fought him, said Surziches looking at Michael and Gabriel, who just nods, and looking at Seraphol and Grafia, she also nods. You can eliminate those wizards, said Seraphol looking at her sister's group and her friend, who just nods. It was worth helping you a little, said Azazel, who just nodded, but his head had another thought. So Michael, Gabriel, Seraphol, Grafia, Azazel, Surziches took out their wings and took flight to be in front of Black. Before this massacre begins, what do you call it? Michael said seriously. Remember the name, the human who is going to kill him. I'm Black, said Black with a serious look, giving a shout and transforming into Super Saiyan. I see that I was not exaggerating, said Azazel seriously, but he was still amazed by such power, but above all, that a human had that power. Be careful, if we all fight together we can beat him, Surziches said with some seriousness, and everyone acknowledged. After all, they had a very high level, but at that point I heard laughter from Black. That's so funny, said Gabriel with some annoyance, since he couldn't stand his attitude. This is not even a quarter of my power. I will show you the power of a human, Black shouted. As he began, he increased his power in a very enormous way, making everyone fall to the ground, for strong pressure that made. Everyone wanted to try to stand up, but they could only release their power, so they could move a little better. Everyone saw how Black's hair grew to his waist, his muscles had increased a little, and lightning came out of Black's body of him. Everyone was amazed, now they felt a very overwhelming power, which even a moment ago trembled in the place where they were. The leaders did not believe that a single human had that power. But they saw how Black had a power loaded in his hand, everyone felt a chill, he already felt that that power could eliminate him. Die from a single attack, said Black. To go where they were, Kateria had a smile on her face, since at last the leaders of each faction were going to die and she regains her position. When Black was about to launch his power, he felt someone hit him and launched the power that Black had where Kateria was, she received the attack, but gave a heart-rending scream until her body was disintegrated. The leaders looked at that with a little fear, since it was clear that Black was really going to kill him. They saw who it was who saved his life, and the demons are only amazed to see him again. It's you, Black said seriously, but with a smile. I always have to save their damn heads, demons, Issei said with a serious voice. Perhaps Urzichez knows him. Azazel said seriously and curiously at the same time. He was the one who helped us in the underworld, said Sarah, but at the same time relieved. Because he ignores me, Black said, somewhat annoyed by Issei, and he only sees it. Because he uses the Super Saiyan transformation phase 3, he knows with that power he can destroy 5 entire cities, Issei said seriously and amazed everyone. I wanted to finish this the right way, but you did it the hard way, said Black, then disappears and appears in front of Issei. He didn't have time to react, but he felt Black hit him a dozen times until he grabbed his arm and started turning him around until he threw him into the gym. Seriously, he is the boy who helped him in the underworld, since for me, they already defeated him, Azazel said seriously, but when Urzichez was going to say something, everything feels like the earth begins to shake and the golden pile appears, but a power appears. Made present. Until someone comes out of there, that was Issei with his clothes torn, but in the same way, he was converted into a Super Saiyan phase 3. Every encounter we have, we must increase our power more, said Issei, looking at Black with a serious look. You asked for it, besides, I want to try all my transformations, after all, these transformations are the weakest, said Black with a smile. But both disappeared and a wave of power was present, everyone saw how Issei and Black had bumped fists. So Issei and Black began to have a fierce fight, showing one of the two were stronger, but both had the same strength, until they both separated. Take this, final glow, Black shouted as he threw great power at Issei, and he just put his hand together to launch his attack. So both of them collided attack, but both of them didn't want to give their arm twist, so the energy ball was being pushed towards each other. But since both energies could not take it anymore, that same energy explodes, taking everything in its path, even killing some enemies, only what they could make a barrier to protect themselves will be saved. The leaders only looked at the destruction, those two had a terrifying but also destructive power, but everything saw how Black came out of the rubble, the same came out of Issei, everyone hurt. Issei and Black had their clothes torn and some cut, but everything changed when Black detransformed, something that caught everyone's attention, including Issei. Don't imagine me returning to this divine state, you don't believe it, Black said with a smile, but then he screamed and a crimson aura began to appear until Black's hair was completely red, just like his eye color, but his wound will heal completely. The leaders were more than amazed but also afraid, now they knew that those two were not weak and could eliminate them quickly and saw Issei, who detransformed and returned to his base state. Until he gave a scream, until he became a Super Saiyan God phases. Wow, he appears to have the same transformations that I have including the God phases, said Black with a smile, and everyone heard the word God only one thought came to his head, perhaps they are gods. I don't know how many transformations you were able to achieve in that world, but I have phases 2 and 3 of Super Saiyan God phases, said Issei with a serious tone to get into fighting pose. There is no need to fight, my problem is not with you, or even with the other factions, I am only interested in one faction, and it is the demons, said Black seriously, something that surprised everyone but more the demons. What did they do to you? Issei said with a look down, it appears that he also suffered. Those miserable races, they killed my parents, but before killing him, they tortured him and my mother, and raped her in front of me, that's why I want to eradicate the demons, Black shouted full of fury, as he began to raise his voice. Plus his power. That made Issei form his arm in the shape of a shield, and everyone who was watching that fight was sent flying, since the power he released was very powerful. And to think that I still suffered from the demons, Issei thought, it appears he had a kind of bond between the two of them, but still Black was increasing all his power. Shit, if he continues like this, they're going to transform into Super Saiyan phase 3, God, Issei thought seriously, he wanted to move forward, but the current is so strong that it's impossible to move forward. There is no other option, Issei thought, to put his arm together and begin to release his power, but he couldn't because Black's power sent him flying, and Black was already in his phase 3 transformation. The leaders just looked at that in amazement, but their whole body trembled with fear because of the power that Black released, it seemed like it was not from this world. "I will avenge my parents' death," said Black, as he rushed to where Surzich's was. He didn't even notice, since Black's speed was like the wind or sound itself. Surzich's had fallen, his whole body was hurt, some bones were broken. Everyone is surprised to see that, since it only seemed that he had crossed a small bedek, but it was not Black's speed of him. "Aye," he said, ready to kill him, but out of nowhere Issei appears, kicking him in the face, sending him crashing into the barrier. "Luckily I reinforced this barrier, if not, this country would already be destroyed, just by our presence," Issei thought seriously, but he also had to transform into Super Saiyan God Phase 3. Thus Issei transformed into Super Saiyan God Phases 3, he already manages all his transformations perfectly, or else, he had already destroyed an entire country, just by his power. So Black got out where he had fallen, but he saw that Issei had also transformed. That irritated him, he was copying him, all the transformations he had used in that time, he was doing it. Thus they both launched themselves. The academy is completely destroyed by the wave that hit when his fist collided, a crater when he launched himself between them. But not knowing that all that energy he was using was going somewhere else. Black and Issei were seen holding hands while they collided with their knees in the air until Issei headbutted him. Issei took advantage of that and formed his hand in the shape of a mallet and sent Black flying to crash into the ground. Issei just breathed heavily, he was already a little tired, but even so he could fight for days if necessary without eating. On the other hand, Black was the same as Issei, but he could also fight for days. But his only objective is the demons, nothing more. He no longer wanted to fight, because if he used more power, he would destroy the barrier, and with his and Issei's power, he would most likely destroy the entire country, but the humans had no choice. The blame. So he returned to his Super Saiyan state and did Issei the same, since he didn't want to be caught off guard. "For now I'm leaving just because I'm in the human world, but if we meet again somewhere other than in the human world I assure you that I'm going to use my last transformation," said Black to withdraw from there. Issei just stood there rubbing in the air as I returned to my base state. Shit, this fight wasn't easy, Issei thought with some seriousness and looked down at how he was seeing everything and saw that Surzich's was already a little healed. "I better get out of here," Issei thought as he put his finger on the forehead of his head before teleporting. Azazel appeared in front of Issei. "Boy, I want to ask you some questions," he said seriously, and Issei looks at him. I'm not going to answer any of your questions," Issei said as he left Azazel alone. He decided to go where the others were. "Don't worry, tomorrow we'll go to where he lives." Before I ask him, he put a tracker on him. "It's better to fix all this mess," said Azazel, seeing all the destruction that those two guys had caused. "Elsewhere. Damn, use more power, I want to get out of this damn place," Ziko shouted as he increased his power. He already wanted to get out of there, he was there for hundreds of thousands of years, he wanted the powers of Black and Issei to conquer the whole world or destroy it completely. Chapter 6. The leaders were gathered. Azazel had told him that the boy who fought did not live that far away, so they decided to go to Issei's house until they saw a luxurious house. "Well guys, there is," Azazel said with a serious voice, and the others agreed, but Riaz had other thoughts. She wanted him in her evil room, so they knocked on the door until she saw the boy with a shirt which showed almost his body well worked. Issei is going to see him. He is only a little surprised since he had not felt it, perhaps he was very tired from the fight he had with Black. He was going to close the door, but Azazel puts his foot on him. "What do you want?" Issei said, opening the door, leaving Azazel's foot free. Before they said anything, Azazel spoke. "Riaz. We come to propose something to you, I want you to join my clan," Riaz said with a serious voice, but Issei saw her, a hatred was present. "I didn't know he came with fallen antics, he's just wasting my time," Issei said with a mocking tone, something that made Riaz angry. Before they did anything, his brother stops him and he just denies and looks at Azazel, "And I have just nodes. We came to ask you some questions, didn't you ask me to join you?" Azazel said calmly, and Issei looked at that, he just nodded and allowed everyone to enter, and Issei just sat down. "What do you want to know?" said Issei seriously, looking at everyone. "Well, I'll ask the whole question. The first question, who was that guy who fought you yesterday?" Ask Azazel. "His name is Black," said Issei. "What are the names of those transformations that you two underwent?" Michael asked with some curiosity. "It's called Super Saiyan, that makes our powers multiply," Issei said seriously and amazed everyone. The question, "What is your name?" asked the Seraph Gabriel, and everyone paid more attention to him, and Issei looked at him. "My name is Vegito," said Issei, since he still didn't want anyone to know what his real name was. "Well Vegito, the next question is, how do you, who are humans, have such terrifying powers?" said Seraphol with a shiver. "You always underestimate humans, you only need them because some of them have sacred gear, but what happens if they don't have sacred gear?" said Issei, seeing Riaz and Sona with Alex. The three of them lowered their heads. "What are you trying to tell us?" Surzicha said seriously, and Issei saw him. You only need humans with sacred gear, but what you don't have makes you torture you day, afternoon and night, even years when your body doesn't feel anyone, said Issei, getting up from his seat. He did the same as the present, but Riaz, Sona and Alex remembered something in their past. We don't do that, Surzicha said seriously. Azazel and Michael nodded along with the others. Seriously, so what was my past? Just an adventure, right? Riaz Gremory, Sona Citri and your Alex Haidu, and also where is your other brother whose name was Issei Haidu, Issei said, looking at those mentioned who only lowered their heads, but still everything was surprised. Do you have a brother? Surzichas asked, looking at Alex, and he just agreed, but he was still crying. He also laughed and said. How do you do that? You asked. You laughed sadly, but above all, with some hatred, since now your brother was leaving knowing a secret that he kept for many years. Remember those words, the weak die and the strong live. Well, I was right, said Issei, seeing the surprised look on Riaz, Sona and Alex. Impossible. Iba tries to speak softly, but Issei just nods. Brother, Alex whispered, but everyone had heard that word, everyone had been surprised. That's right, my name is not the Jito, my real name is Issei, Issei said with a cold voice. How could you get out of here alive, brother, Alex said, trying to hug Issei, but the only thing he received was a blow that sent him crashing into a wall, and Riaz and Sona went to see him. In the first place, I was aiming to die on 2 occasions, and the second and most important thing, if you don't call me brother again, I swear I will kill you, the last thing he said with a cold and emotionless voice that did that everyone would have a chill. That's why Black wants to destroy the demons, since I share the same pain as him, said Issei, calling the attention of the demons. What are you trying to tell us? Grafia said seriously. Because of the demons his parents were murdered, but before being murdered, his mother was brutally raped until she lost her mind and his father tortured him. He all walked in front of him crying, asking him to stop, but they were just making fun of him, Issei said with a serious tone, and surprised everyone more, and Issei went to where Riaz, Sona and Alex were. Where he was in the same place where he was sent flying. The demon will always be the same. It doesn't matter who you are. They are more than scum. He and I share the same feeling towards the demons. Issei said with a cold tone. Maybe you also hate demons, said Gabriel with a serious tone. That question is unnecessary, why don't you tell him, or one of you two? Or why are your brothers there, Issei said, but they just deny it. I was tortured at the age of 3, and till I turned 5 I was tortured for 2 years by your damn sister, even that scum that calls itself brother. They sent me to a place worse than the strong one, said Issei, lifting Alex from the neck. Everyone was amazed. It wouldn't be a bad idea to help Black eliminate the demons forever in this world, said Issei, throwing himself at Alex, who could no longer breathe. Hearing that would get serious. Are you going to be part of Black? Azazel said seriously, but inside he knew he wasn't going to win. No, I don't receive orders from anyone, but if he messes with humans, which has nothing to do with the supernatural, I will personally eliminate him, Issei said with a cold tone. Riaz, Sona and your Alex will tell me everything he did since we were kids, or if you don't want me to use that against you, Surzicha said with a serious tone, and Riaz, Sona and Alex just nods. It's better that you get out of my house and never come back, said Issei seriously. I'm sorry. Serafal was going to apologize for what her sister had done, but Issei had stopped her. This is all because of you. You Surzichas are the leader of the demons, but you always pampered your sister, and your Serafal has a childish and stupid attitude. She is already hundreds of years old. Mature for once, and take her place as it should be, said Issei with a serious tone. They wanted to say something, but he is right. I wanted to live a normal life, but now Black is scared of me, Issei said seriously. Then we can work together. Everything here has the same objective, Michael said. I always work alone. I don't like being in company, and even more so if it's a demon. It's better that you leave. I'm not going to keep telling you, Issei said seriously, as he went to where the door was and opened it, and so each one left, until everything was gone and Issei just closed the door. That damn fell one put something in my clothes to do, Issei thought seriously, and so he went to look for the clothes he had yesterday and had destroyed. It is better to sell this house or buy another house, Issei said to himself, since he knew that he would continue to be bothered, and even more so if he already knew who they were. I better go talk to Yasaka, said Issei, putting his finger in front of his head and teleported. Yasaka Temple. Yasaka was sitting at her desk, but then she raised her head and saw that it was Issei, but her face had an angry expression. What's wrong with you? Yasaka spoke with great curiosity, and Issei told her everything that had happened to him, but he didn't tell her much about what he had practiced with the other leaders. You're doing what you always do, Issei said, and she just nods. Do you think we have dinner? I say to take away this stress, Issei said, and Yasaka just agreed. So Issei had gone to a room to get ready. When Issei came out, he saw Yasaka in a traditional Kyoto dress, but her huge chest stood out. They both blushed, so Issei grabbed Yasaka's hand and went to have fun. They were both the envy of every couple, they even took some photos together, and the last place was in a bar, since they both wanted to try some drinks. But that was too much, since Issei and Yasaka were totally drunk until they ended up in a dark alley. Issei looked at Yasaka, both were lost in his gaze, until Issei steals a kiss from him, but that kiss begins to have something lustful, until Yasaka wraps her leg around Issei's waist. Yasaka only makes a magic circle to go to her temple. At the Yasaka temple. Issei and Yasaka were in one of the temple rooms. Yasaka had off Issei's shirt taken from her, and he had only lowered her kimono a little, revealing that beautiful chest of hers. Issei had laid Yasaka down. But Issei stops, he had come to his senses, he saw how Yasaka was waiting for him. What was he going to do with the house? Was he going to do it? He just shakes his head. It's better to go, Issei thought with some seriousness and saw Yasaka. It was better for her to rest, and he saw how she had fallen asleep. He just put his hand on her forehead and left there, leaving a sleeping Yasaka. Issei had arrived home, he just threw himself onto his bed and fell deeply asleep and had promised himself that he would never drink. Somewhere else. Black, in 2 weeks, open a meeting with the Nordic faction that day. I want you to kill the leaders of each faction, said Rizavam. You don't have to tell me that, I'm going to avenge the death of my parents, Black said with a serious and at the same time cold voice. Rizavam just smiled. Chapter 7. Issei had arrived home, he had fallen deeply asleep until he recovered from his drunkenness. Issei only got out of his bed to be his daily routine until he decided to sell the house, and so he put up a sign that he said for sale. It didn't even take 10 minutes, since a super millionaire girl wanted the house, and so Issei sold it. I gave her the keys and told her to come back in 30 minutes, so he could buy another one, and she accepted. So Issei found another bigger house, and so Issei bought it, and with his teleportation, he brought all his stuff to his new house. Now Issei had a problem because he knew that each faction was going to bother him. He wanted to be alone, he didn't believe anything in love, he didn't even completely trust Yasaka. But that wasn't the important thing, I decided to do something else. In the underworld. Now tell me, Riaz, but I want the truth, said Surziches, looking at Riaz with a cold look, but they weren't the only one there, since there was Michael and Azazel and Sona and Alex and Serafal. Brother, it was all a mistake, please forgive me, he said, laughing with tears, but the only thing he received was a slap from Surziches, surprising everyone. Tell me the truth, maybe you're Alex or Sona, but I want the truth, don't make me force you to use that, Surziches said with a cold voice, and the three of them were only scared because of that voice. So you laugh, Sona and Alex tell him everything. It should be said that the leaders were totally surprised but also angry because of those three, but it's the fault of those three. Now they had a worse enemy who worked in the Cows Brigade. You know Black, since he has a hatred towards us, Serafal said seriously, but they just deny. It's the first time I've seen him, Sona said nervously. The world of darkness always kept secrets, but it was impossible to get out alive, Azazel said seriously, drawing everyone's attention. What do you mean? Surziches asked seriously and Azazel just let out a sigh. Nobody knows. I always kept it a secret, but I once entered that place, said Azazel, and everyone listened to that and was very surprised. How did you get into that place, and how did you get out of there alive? I speak to Michael seriously. It was when I ended up in the second war between factions. I was creating a portal to bring army from other parts to help me finish you off, I was saying Azazel, but Surziches speaks. You're a bastard, he wanted to cheat to destroy us, said Surziches, somewhat annoyed. We were at war, anything goes in war, but don't interrupt me. Well, something went wrong, the machine had turned on by itself, and I was absorbed, but Azazel stayed there. Then what happened to you? Michael asked seriously. What I saw with my own eyes, they were worse than hell itself. They were not 100 times worse than this place. In that place there is a pure monster with the level of a high-class demon, said Azazel seriously. Everyone was amazed to hear that, since they had heard that that place was ugly, but if Azazel said it was 100 times that of hell itself, it had to be true. But if he had the same strength as a high-class demon, you could have defeated them, said Alex with some fear. Yes, but I thought it was only one, but I was totally wrong, since thousands and many thousands of those monsters came out of nowhere, some even surpassed the level of a high-class demon. I could say that it was like a supreme-class demon, Azazel said seriously, and everyone was surprised. How could you get out of Hay alive? Ria said with great fear. I couldn't believe that Issei had experienced torment in that place. I created the biggest spear I could ever create in my life and threw it towards them and started running like crazy. Even a lava dragon had come out of there and was chasing me, Azazel said, and everyone listened to that and was surprised. The lava dragon, said Serafal with great astonishment, and Azazel just nods. I let them follow me while I was being followed by that dragon and hundreds of thousands of those monsters. I created several spears, I didn't create thousands of spears, and I threw them towards them, that created a curtain of earth, I took advantage of that, and I hid, said Azazel. And you were able to escape, Sona said, but Azazel just shook his head. They knew where I was, so I ran again. I thought they were the end of me, but the portal had opened, and I entered again and appeared in my laboratory. Azazel told how in 15 minutes his life had changed. Then that young man called Issei must have more power, said Serafal seriously, but at the same time with fear, and Azazel just nods. I couldn't even live for a day. I only had 15 minutes. For me, I was already dead and in an ugly place. I can't imagine how those two could have lived for more than 13 years, Azazel said with a serious voice. So Azazel saw Riaz, Sona and Alex, with a serious face. Light and darkness are the hopes of this world, and only one being will appear, said Azazel. That caught everyone's attention, since no one understood those words. What is Azazel trying to say? I don't understand light and darkness, said Michael seriously. I heard that before returning to my laboratory. I tried to forget the beginning completely, but now those words may make some sense, Azazel said with a serious voice. What to try to tell us, Azazel, Serziches said with a serious tone. That boy in black gives off a dark aura. Desire for revenge. I didn't ask myself what revenge, since everyone knows the reason, seeing Serziches. Are you trying to tell me that this is my fault? Serziches said seriously. I'm not trying to say anything, but that boy has a hatred towards demons, but let me tell me my theory, said Azazel, and Serziches could only nod. Black has darkness in his heart and Issei has light in his heart. I don't know how he could be led to hate. But those two are opposites, but I heard light and darkness are hopes, Azazel was going to say but was interrupted. Do you think those two are the hopes of the world? Michael said, and Azazel just agreed. Azazel, Black wants to destroy the demons, and Issei hates those three, stupid, said Serziches looking at Riaz, Sona and Alex with a cold look. Yes, he must be right, I think it was an illusion because he is running for my life, said Azazel, returning his carefree attitude to him. But inside he had to investigate several things about that world. Well, I'm leaving, since we have to hold the meeting of the Nordic faction, Azazel said to leave. Hey, Michael did the same. But Serziches and Serafal were going to give a severe punishment to Riaz, Sona and Alex, since he had spoiled her a lot and there was his mistake, but the three of them knew that they deserved it because someone sent them to that world. Because of Azazel's word, they were worse than hell itself. But Issei. He was just walking through the streets of Kuo City. He had made a decision. He was never going to take anything serious with Yasaka, since he felt another aura in her belly, a sign that he was pregnant. He was so deep in thought that he had bumped into someone. Sorry, I didn't trust where I was walking, said Issei, shaking hands with the girl who made her fall. Don't worry, I was distracted too, said the girl, who took Issei's hand from her to help her up. My name is Nean, a girl with silver hair and an excellent body to die for. You're half angel, right? Issei said with a serious tone, something that surprised the girl, but she just agreed. But I don't belong to that faction, and no other, let's say I'm a free angel, Nean said with a smile, and Issei could only nod, but she asked him how he knew that. Issei lies to her about a lot, and Nean, he just believed him. There is a side where I lived, said Nean, but she just denies it. Issei invites her to sleep at her house, and she accepts. Chapter 8. Issei's POV. It had been a week since I met Nean. I must say that I feel great being by her side, since now we are best friends. I even felt better when I was next to Yasaka, but she already had her life made and was expecting a son or daughter in her womb. But that wasn't my problem, but I had heard that next week there was going to be a meeting with the Nordic faction, but honestly that wasn't my problem. But then I felt an aura that I recognized immediately, so I went to the door and opened it before he could knock on it. What can I do for you, Fall? I asked him in a serious tone, and Azazel just looked at me. Boy, I just came to ask you some questions, and don't worry, I didn't tell anyone that I had moved you to another house, Azazel told me with some seriousness, and I just sighed. Come in. Then I told Azazel to come in, but then Nean came out and she just looked at me. Issei, he is the leader of the fallen, right? Nean told me and I just nod my head. Nean can do you in favor, can you go buy some things, I said to Nean, and she just nods, and so she leaves from there. End of Issei's POV. He had only taken a seat and saw that Azazel did the same. What do you want to know? Issei said with a serious voice. Before we start, she is an angel, right? And secondly, she doesn't know anything about your life, right? Azazel asked. That's right, Ella, she was born in the human world, but Ella, she does N''T want to know anything about heaven's affairs, and secondly, Ella, she does N''T know anything about me, Issei said calmly. So Azazel tells him how he was in that dimension. It should be said that Issei was amazed, since he thought that only he and Black were in that dimension. But no, Azazel was also in that place. But they were not a big deal, since it lasted only 15 minutes. I didn't imagine that you came to tell me just that, right? You want something else, Issei said seriously. I want you to go to the Nordic faction meeting, said Azazel. I have refused. That's not my problem, I'm not in any faction to agree to that kind of meeting, Issei said seriously. Boy, I understand why you don't want to go, but it will be for the good of everyone, just do me that favor, Azazel said, kneeling before Issei. You better get up, look, Raven, I'm not interested in anything in your world, because of me Black can destroy it, that's not my problem, it's yours, Issei said as he walked to where the door was and opened it. You can go, he said seriously, and Azazel just stood up to leave Issei's house. But at that moment Nean arrived. What happened, Issei? Nean asked with great curiosity, but Issei just shook his head as a sign that he wouldn't tell him at all, and Nean just agreed. Well, do you think we'll make the food? Nean said with a beautiful smile, and Issei nodded, so they both went to the kitchen. The Fallen Angels faction, Azazel's laboratory. He was only looking at some of his papers, since he had a serious face, so Azazel threw papers like a madman, until he was able to find the paper he was looking for. It will be for the good of everything. I'm going to fix the machine, Azazel told himself to go to a place forbidden to others, and so Azazel broke some seals until he destroyed everything, and so Azazel opened the door and closed it again. It will be a long job, said Azazel with a sigh, seeing the large size of the machine. Light and darkness must be one being to defeat evil, the place resonated, and Azazel just opened his eyes in surprise, as it was the same voice he had heard many years ago. Who is there? What does light and darkness mean? It must be one being to defeat evil. Azazel said out of nowhere, but he had no answer, something that bothered Azazel a lot. I'm not going crazy, thought Azazel with some panic, but he just shook his head, but he decided to go fix the machine. In another part of the world. Ziko was seen meditating. It was planned how Issei and Black would fight with all their strength, so that he would destroy the seal or the place where he was. He saw many candidates so that they could do their job, but none of them were the candidate, but he saw how Black was talking to a silver-haired man, as a sign that he was receiving orders. Ziko just smiled, since he was going to make his puppet of him, so he disconnected from his mind of him and all to Rizavum's mind. With Rizavum. He was just walking to his room, but out of nowhere he collapses on the floor. In Rizavum's subconscious, he only looked at where he was, it was a dark place, but then he heard a voice. Who's there? Rizavum said with a serious voice. My name is Ziko, said Ziko, appearing in front of Rizavum. What do you want from me? Also, where are we, damn? Rizavum shouted with a serious voice. First of all, I'll tell you again, my name is Ziko, and secondly, we are in your subconscious. Now calm down, you like what I'm going to tell you a lot. Ziko said with a serious voice, but he had a smile that strongly attracted the attention of Rizavum. What do you want from me? Rizavum asked with great curiosity. I just want one thing, I want you to make Black fight that guy called Issei, said Ziko, amazed at Rizavum. But because I still have plans with that guy called Issei, I still don't want Black to kill that guy, Rizavum said seriously. Don't worry, I know your ambition after all, since I'm looking for the same thing. I want everyone to kneel before me, but the only ones that can be inferred in that plan is Issei along with Black after all. One day he will find out that you were the one who killed his father, Ziko said seriously. Rizavum just kept thinking, after all, he was right, one day Black will find out that he was the one who killed his parents. He could join forces with Issei to destroy his organization. You and I can become the new rulers of this world, tell me, accept, said Ziko while shaking Rizavum's hand, but he only looked at him and then put on a smile and shook his hand. Tell me what I can do to free you, Rizavum said with a smile. Like I told you, I just want Issei and Black to fight. With all their power and that power they will come where I am and break where I am, and I will be free, Ziko said. Consider it done. I have an attack on the faction for a week, but Black will also attack, but as always that guy seems to be called Issei. At that moment I will tell Black to kill Issei, Rizavum said with a smile. No. I shouldn't kill him yet. I must kill him since I want him to steal all that power and share it with you, Ziko said seriously, and Rizavum just acknowledged. Besides, if one of them dies, I have to wait another 400,000 years, that's why I don't want him to die yet, said Ziko. Wait, you know those two, Rizavum said with a serious tone. It's a long story, but it must wait since now I have to go, I must keep power, said Ziko to disappear. Out of the subconscious. Rizavum just gets up from the ground and sits on his bed, but forms an evil smile, since he was going to have another strong ally, but now he had to fight Black against Issei. For him it would be something easy, so he decided to leave there, to plan everything and make sure that no mistakes came out. But now he only had one thought, I will finally be able to conquer the world. Chapter 9. A week later. The meeting had started. The Nordic faction wanted to make an alliance with the three dragon factions, but to everyone's surprise, the meeting had been ruined by Loki, the god of deception, but Ajuka had locked him up and sent him to a different dimensions for only 24 hours. I had already chosen. The Gremory group was with Issei, along with Odin's bodyguard, no name was Rasuace. But Azazel had left the room since he had to go somewhere. Everyone had asked him where he was going, he only answered that he was going to do something, and that's how he left. At Issei's house. He only trained, he had even trained Nean, but to Issei's surprise, Nean was totally strong, even Issei's word told Nean that she was stronger than Michael, she even surpassed him in strength. But at that moment they both heard someone knocking on the door, so they went to see who it was, but Issei had already felt the energy, who was knocking on the door. Now that he's looking for a fallen one, said Issei, opening the door, and there was Azazel with a serious face, something that bothered Issei, since he won't leave him alone. Tell me, Issei, have you ever heard that light and darkness are the salvation of this world? Azazel said, and Issei looked at him strangely, even Nean. Sorry Azazel, but that's absurd, so how does God, who is light, and Lucifer, who was darkness, caused so much destruction? I don't see the point, said Nean with a serious voice, and Issei nods. Also, if you say that light and darkness are salvation, then it must be Michael and Surziches, the two of them are very opposite, Issei said with a serious voice, and Issei speaks again. But I'm not that guy, besides where does he get those crazy ideas, said Issei somewhat seriously. It may be true, but it's just a feeling since you and Black are opposites too, Azazel said with a serious tone, strongly drawing Issei's attention. Come on falling grain, you stopped making a lot of detours, said Issei, already a goatherd because of the situation. Issei, you and Black are the salvation of this world, you are the proof, I was going to say Azazel, but Issei silenced him. Azazel, it's better if I hold your tongue, since you'll lose everything you know, Issei said seriously, and Azazel realized that Nean didn't know anything about Issei's past. Who is Black, Issei? Nean asked with great curiosity, and Issei just cursed at that moment. Black is a friend, he just has a lot of problems, and Azazel wants to help him, really full in, Issei said, looking at Azazel with a cold look, and Azazel just acknowledged. I see, Nean said, but she wasn't stupid, she knew that Issei was hiding something from her, and she decided to leave. Hey, and Issei, seeing that Nean was gone, let out a sigh of relief. Azazel, I don't know what he's up to. I don't know what it means that light and darkness are the hope of the world, but for me it's something absurd trying to do something or planning how to defeat Loki, said Issei, very surprised, to Azazel. Perhaps I was going to continue, but Issei just nods. That's right, I felt a power and I went to find out who released that power, and I realized that it was Loki, and you are coming so that I can stop him, but I will tell you my answer, it is a no, so no problem, Issei said seriously. To close the door. Azazel just shook his head, he knew that Issei had to face his destiny one day, but now was not the time, so he was left to solve Loki's problem. The next day. Everything was ready to go to fight with Loki, so there was a very intense fight, but what nobody expected was that Black had appeared in that place and was humiliating the Gremory clan, along with her to Issei. Everyone was surprised since they did not expect it, but the strange thing was that Issei never appeared, a sign that he was no longer going to help him, so the leaders decided to go to the battlefield. So Surziches, Michael, Azazel and Odin went to fight with Black. It appears he was giving him a fight since he was in his Super Saiyan Phase 3 God transformation. But more reinforcements had arrived, such as Ajuka, Falbium and Serafal, Gabriel, Uriel and Raphael were in Los Angeles, and Penemu and Baraquiel were among the fallen. I forgot what the name of the vice president of the fallen was, but it doesn't matter, let's continue with the history. So everyone went against Black, he was surpassing him, he got excited and expelled more power and sent everyone flying. That's enough, Black, it's finished, Surziches said in a serious tone. Don't make me laugh, I'm going to show you more of my power, said Black with a smile that made everyone surprised, but it was, since the place began to shake and a great power began to be felt, everyone saw how a blue aura began to cover Black until his hair was completely blue, as well as his eyes, and a blue aura surrounded him. Everyone was surprised since they thought that it was all of Black's power, but they were wrong since that guy had increased his power out of nowhere. So Black began to fight in an incredible way since his speed was surprising, since no one saw him, and he began to humiliate everyone who was there. He did not care if they were women since he beat them brutally and made them spit large amounts of blood. Everyone was totally injured, none of them were able to fight again. So Black was going to give each one his final blow, but out of nowhere a thunder had hit him and everyone saw who it was, and they were Thor. Father finds you well, Thor said with a serious tone, and Odin just agreed. Thank you for coming to time, if it weren't for you, we would already be dead, said Odin while they were helped by Thor. "It's better to go, we are no match for that guy since I feel that he has more power inside him," said Azazel with a serious tone, and Odin just nods, since he had felt it too. So Thor had created several magic circles and everything that was there was gone, leaving Black alone with Loki, but the latter was upset because Black did not kill his father. "Are you an idiot? Why didn't you kill Odin?" he shouted angrily, and Black just looked at him, and without warning, Black cut off Loki's right arm and he just screamed. "If you call me an idiot again, I'll kill you," Black said in a cold voice and left, leaving Loki unconscious, since he did N''T want to listen to his complaints, or else he would kill him. In the Citri hospital. Everything was being attended to by each doctor, while some gave him phoenix tears to help him with some of his wounds. Zeoticus, Venelana along with Sona's parents had a serious face, since no one believed that the leaders were all injured, even their best commander or companion as they called him. So that guy called Black had great power, and there was no one who could fight him, or so they thought, but they saw how Azazel had gotten up from his place and left there. "Wait, Azazel, where are you going to go? You're still all hurt," said Zeoticus seriously. You think this is something? No, this is just beginning. We must be prepared," said Azazel with a serious voice, thus creating a magic circle and going to his laboratory, and Zeoticus just denies it, since for him, Azazel was exaggerating. In Azazel's laboratory. He only appeared at his workplace, he saw his machine and knew that he was going to finish a little and that he would have an answer. A single being will be born from two people, light and darkness are the hope of the world. They are the chosen ones, said a voice from nowhere. Azazel just stood up in amazement as he heard that voice again for the third time and knew that he was not crazy. "Who are you and where did you get that answer? Where do you say? Light and darkness are the hope of this world. Pioneers?" Azazel shouted, already desperate for that situation. "All your answers are in the world of darkness," said the voice again, and now Azazel knew where he could start when searching. Azazel decided to continue with his work, he wanted to look for more answers, and luckily that voice gave him a clue where to start first. Chapter 10. Azazel's POV. It had been several days since Loki had attacked on the day of the meeting, but in reality he was not the problem. The real problem was Black. With his monstrous power he had humiliated us. I even thought that Issei was going to appear as always, but no, he fulfilled what he said he is not interested in our life, but now, I was fixing the machine that was almost ready, but then I saw a magic circle appear, and I saw that it was Surzich's with a serious face and at the same time very worrying. Black is attacked in Rhea's raiding game. But he is not the only one, he is with Loki along with Shalba and Crusoe, those four are causing great chaos in the underworld right now, Surzich said with a serious voice. "I see, I will send a large group of fallen angels, let's go now," I answered with a serious voice, and Surzich acknowledged, so we each created our respective magic circle and went into the underworld. In the underworld. I thought Surzich was exaggerating, but I didn't see with my own eyes, now in the underworld there was great chaos, everything in the place had dead bodies, but I saw how Odin, Michael and Grafia fought with Shalba, he was winning alone, that's 3. Even all Crusoe was humiliated to the leaders of heaven and the demons, even Ajuka who is a super demon like Surzich's and Loki, only played with Gremory and Citri's team. But what was giving the most face was both dragons, Alex and Vali both were giving their best effort, but no, Black only humiliated him. This is how I saw how Surzich's rushed towards Black helping Alex and Vali, but the result was the same, the only person who could handle Black was Issei, but he was not interested in their world. So I created a large spear of light and threw it towards Black, he appeared and caught it with surprise, since he didn't have time to dodge my attack. End of Azazel's POV. He just stood next to his people. Everything was together again, so Black, Loki, Shalba and Crusoe, both of them were looking at each other defiantly, while increasing their powers, until Black, the Super Saiyan, arrived. So Black had launched first, but to everyone's surprise, someone had appeared at great speed and made a large crater with Black's body. But everyone saw how Black was completely embedded in the ground, and they saw who did that, and to everyone's surprise, it was Issei, who had a smile on his face. Black, in a fit of anger, had transformed into Super Saiyan Blues and sent Issei flying, while Black began to fly in the air and began to create a powerful attack. Issei looked at that seriously and he also transformed into the Super Blue Saiyan and puts his finger on his forehead and disappears and appears behind Black, and Issei kicks him, thus nullifying the power that Black was creating. Issei stands in front of the leaders and only had a serious face. "I just want you to fight with that 3, I'll take care of Black," said Issei with a serious voice, and so he left at a great speed where Black was, and so they both started to fight. "It's better that I call all the Surzich's clans, since this fight won't be pretty," said Nean who appeared behind them. "Pioneers?" Michael asked with a serious tone. She's Nean, she's Issei's friend. But if I were you, Surzich's would listen to him. Since I myself have a feeling that those two are not going to contain themselves anymore, said Azazel seriously, and Surziches just nods and looks at his companions, and they nod, so each one created a magic circle in their ear and told everyone in the underworld to retreat and to go to Grigori. Heaven and Asgard. But the whole underworld began to tremble, and everyone began to feel two monstrous powers, even Loki, Shalba and Krusari, looked at who released those two enormous powers. But they saw how Black and Issei had hair down to their waists and how the two of them created two powerful spheres, and so they both launched their attacks colliding in progress. Guys, let's all create a powerful barrier, that attack won't last long and will explode, said Azazel seriously, and so everyone gathered their energy and created a powerful barrier with the help of Nean. But this last one I wanted to know more answers, now I wanted to know who Issei was and how he is so powerful. Thus the underworld began to erupt, pillars of fire came out from the ground, since Issei and Black did not want to lose in that clash of power. But that attack was not going anywhere, since it began to take on a reddish color, a sign that it was no longer going to resist, but Issei and Black's eyes began to change color and began to take on a silvery color. But both attacks did not resist and everyone was sent flying, even Issei and Black, but killing some of the Chaos Brigade soldiers, but at that moment Loki, Shalba and Krusari created a barrier, or else he would already be dead from that wave of power. Everyone saw how there was a curtain of earth, but everyone saw how a silhouette looked, and they saw that they were black with some wounds on their body, but in their hand, they had a sphere of energy just to launch themselves out of nowhere. But now their hair was silver. But everyone saw how a silver catch came out of nowhere, and from there came a person, and that was Issei, but he had no shirt left and had many wounds on his body, but just like Black, Issei had silver hair. Issei and Black went to bump fists, only to grab each other's hands and start bumping knees, they even bumped heads. Only for Issei to land a blow on Black and kick him in the head and send him crashing, so Issei lands and launches a powerful attack. But what he didn't expect was for Black to appear behind him. Issei just opened his eyes in surprise, but for Black to give him an attack in the stomach, so Issei was sent flying and destroying a clan. The leaders were amazed at what they were seeing, they even destroyed a clan that was there, but luckily, there was no one there anymore. "You are a bastard," Issei shouted, leaving the place where he was, sending him flying, and with his two hands he created two spheres of power to unite them, but Black did the same, he was creating a powerful attack. Guys, it's not for nothing. But if they release those two powers, they are capable of destroying the underworld and half of Grigori, said Azazel with a serious tone, and everyone who hears that is surprised, but he was absolutely right. But they saw how a dimensional gap opened and out came a black-haired woman and a red-haired man, both of whom had a serious face. "Office, who are you?" Surziches said seriously. "I am Great Red, the dragon god," said Great Red seriously, everyone listening is surprised because they know who they were. "You can stop that fight," she said, "you laugh with fear," but he just shakes his head. "Those two are capable of defeating me, even Office. We are no match for them," said Greed Red seriously, and everyone listens to that and is surprised. But they stopped their conversations as they saw how the sky of the underworld began to fall, and the dimensional gap was noticeable. "Imba Kamehameha," Issei shouted, launching his powerful attack. "Final glow," Black shouted, thus attacking hands were directed against them, but to the surprise of both, they saw how his powerful attacks from him rose. "What the hell happened? I wanted Black to receive the attack," Issei said seriously, and Black thought the same thing, but they didn't take him into account and they took up their fight again. But Ziko. He was smiling a lot as he was watching the two powerful attacks that Issei and Black launched at the same time, and he knew if that hit his barrier, he would be free. So Ziko began to increase his power more since he did not want to be killed by the explosion when he was free, and so it was that the two powers had collided and made a big explosion, which made the entire supernatural world tremble, but Ziko saw how that power was destroying the barrier, and with his power he had completely destroyed it. But he had gotten so excited that he kept increasing more of his power. But Issei and Black both stopped their fight, everyone saw it, but what they didn't expect was that Issei and Black himself started to tremble, a sign that he was afraid. Everyone saw that, they never thought in their lives they would see that. "What is that powerful one?" Issei said with some fear, seeing his hands trembling. "It's my first time that I feel such a terrifying power," Black said, looking at his hand and how it was trembling. They both looked up as the dimensional gap looked like a certain person. Issei and Black only got a chill from that person. Before one of the two said anything, Issei was sent flying at an incredible speed, which even destroyed half of a clan. All of this was seen by everyone, which was only it was surprising, since they didn't see who had done it. Just then I heard a scream. Everyone saw how a guy had Black lifted up with just one hand. "They are idiots," Ziko said with a smile while holding Black. "Who are you?" Black asks with great difficulty. "I am the most powerful being in this disgusting world. My name is Ziko," said Ziko with a big smile. Damn. I feel like my power is diminishing, thought Black very seriously. I'm absorbing what is rightfully mine, said Ziko with a cold voice, and when Black was about to say something, Ziko releases Black, raises his hand and grabs a fist. He stopped my blow with just one hand, Issei thought, surprised, only to be thrown next to Black. Those who were watching that fight are more than surprised, since they always thought that Issei and Black were the only thing they could stop, but no, now a guy came out who was humiliating him. Issei and Black just came out where he was, but he was transforming into the Super Saiyan Phase 3. But they both knew that power was not going to be enough, and they looked at each other and just agreed. If I have that transformation, you must have it too, said Issei with a serious tone, and Black just nods, returning to his base state. If I were you, I would get out of here, said Issei looking at the leaders, since he knew that this was going to be a massacre, they just agreed and left there. I don't know why they call themselves the most powerful, after all, they are chickens, said Black with an annoyed tone, but he had already left. So Issei and Black just looked at each other and began to increase their powers more after each of their transformations. The entire underworld, not the entire planet Earth, began to shake, there were earthquakes and tsunamis, just with the powers of Issei and Black. Until that finally they had reached their last transformation. Ziko just smiled and out of nowhere started laughing in a mocking and demonic way. What did I laugh at? Black said with an annoyed tone, since now the two of them were going to use their maximum powers. You never wondered why two simple humans have such powerful powers, Ziko said with a smile. I always wondered about it. But in the end I stopped taking it into account when I was in that world, Issei said seriously, and Black just acknowledged as he did the same. You two are reincarnations of two powerful beings. Your Issei is the reincarnation of Vegito. In his time he was someone feared for his powers. Black, you're Gogeta, just like Vegito, he was someone feared in his time, Ziko said with a great smile. Issei and Black listened to that, you are never surprised in your lives, I thought that the two of them were simple reincarnations of two extremely powerful individuals. It doesn't matter, I'm a reincarnation if I had these powers in Syria for a reason, and I'm somewhat sure. These powers would serve to defeat you, Issei shouted as he rushed towards Ziko, and thus they began to fight. Black just listening to those words found something meaningful in his life, but he decided to join in that fight, so the three of them began to fight in an incredible way, since he teleported wherever he went, but Issei and Black had the upper hand, since he barely Ziko was free, and he only fought for his years of life, he was still not at his 100%. So with a few blows, he sent Issei and Black flying, and he teleported himself to another part of the world. Chapter 11. The leaders had appeared, they had seen everything and heard everything, they saw Issei and Black in their last transformations, and the most powerful they knew that not even the two of them would be able to deal with this new enemy, who appears to know more than they know. Issei, we must join forces and train to overcome our limits, Black said in a serious voice. Since he had revealed to him that Rizavam was the one who ordered the killing of his father, and it was not Surzich's or one of his companions, they were innocent and Issei did it. Look, he knew that Black was absolutely right. We must train in the other place, since he did not use any transformation, and if we can, most likely he can transform too, I answer seriously, and Black just nods since he knew that. Please wait. We want more explanation, Surzicha said very seriously, but both of them did not take him into account, but they saw how both of them stayed with the Super Saiyan Blue's transformations, and Issei approaches Nean. I feel sorry for talking to you so late, Issei told him. I don't know, I'm sorry, I was very glad you did it, Nean answered with a beautiful smile. I just came to say goodbye to you, Issei said with some sadness, but he had a smile. What? Yes, I understand, I'm very sorry that I'm a bother for you, said Nean with some tears, but Issei dried them. No, you're not a nuisance, on the contrary. I don't want to involve you in the dangers, I answer honestly. Hey? The truth is that the villains have me very threatened, I don't want to involve you in that, goodbye, it was nice to meet you, he said to start walking. Please wait, tell me if there is anything I can do so that you don't get there, Nean said, making Issei stop. I don't want to lie to you, said Issei, seeing Nean who was taking a step. Stay there and listen to me, said Issei seriously. Yes, Nean. Context. You are a wonderful girl, you taught me for the first time what love is. In the perverse group to which I belong there is no love, we betray each other and kill others for our benefit, and I thought that only then could they be things, but your love opened my eyes, Issei told her to give Nean a kiss with love, and she reciprocated it. Everyone saw that scene with sadness and at the same time with joy, some even had tears, they knew Issei's suffering in that world. But they saw how Issei and Nean separated and Issei only stands next to Black, and he only puts his hand on Issei's shoulder, and he puts his two fingers on his forehead. Goodbye, Nean, said Issei to disappear from that place with Black. Leaving Nean alone in that place, but she knew that one day Issei would come for her, then she heard a moan of pain, and they saw that it was Azazel. What's wrong with you, Azazel? Said Auden with a serious tone towards the leader of the fallen. My head hurts, Azazel said with a lot of pain in his head, but many images passed through his head, like a performance next to a song. Azazel Michael was going to touch him, but Azazel doesn't stop. I can see it. I can see what is going to happen. How the planet will end, chaos, destruction. Deaths, tsunamis, earthquakes, Azazel said, amazed at everyone. Azazel, you are going crazy, said Baraquiel and Penemu at the same time. The answer is in the world of trembles, salvation is in that place, you have to enter, said Azazel, and then fainted from so much information that had passed through his head. That worried everyone, who decided to go to heaven, since there was everything necessary to see what Azazel had in his head or what he was going really crazy. 3 hours in the hospital. At that time Azazel regained consciousness, and the others had told him everything that had happened, but Azazel had not even been surprised by what they told him. I have to go, guys, said Azazel with a serious tone, strongly attracting attention. Where do you plan to go? Now the whole world has a serious problem, said Auden seriously. Even all the facts are asking for a meeting between all of us, since you know what's coming, it's not pretty at all, Surziches said seriously. I'm going to the world of trembling. There I will find all the necessary answers, said Azazel seriously and surprised everyone. You yourself said that this place is hell itself, said Michael seriously. Yes, but tell me who caused all this, it's not Riaz and Sona, even Alex. If those three used their heads and hadn't sent Issei to that place, he wouldn't have awakened that power, said Azazel seriously, making those mentioned sad for what he had done in that past. I'm going to accompany you, Surziches said seriously. Michael said the same, even Auden, but Azazel said no, since he had to supervise the meeting, and they left their trusted men, even the Gremory group went with them. Azazel accepted, since he knew he would need more help. So everyone went to Azazel's offices, for which I opened a door guarded with many forbidden seals and amazed everyone. Azazel, who was hiding in that door, said Surziches with some seriousness. In recent days, I was rebuilding the door and everything was a success, he answered calmly and opened the door, and everyone saw the door. Wow, Azazel is huge, Ria said with great amazement. But how can we know if it's already completely fixed, said Gabriel very innocently, who without realizing it pressed a red button, something that scared Azazel a lot, and everyone saw it. We're ready. It's already on, said Azazel, and then he heard the machine start to turn on, and a red portal opened, but at that moment, Azazel, Gabriel, Michael, Surziches, Nean along with the Gremory group were absorbed by the portal. In the world of trembling. The group had fallen in a distant place to see what the place was like. They were afraid, since there were many monsters, and like a lava dragon came out of a volcano. Don't even think about attacking, because many more may come out, Azazel warned very seriously, and everyone agreed. Where are we going, Azazel, since you are the only one who knows this place, since at this moment you are the leader, said Gabriel, and everyone nods. Well, all we have to do is look for caves, since someone didn't let me bring me everything I had investigated, said Azazel with some annoyance, and Gabriel just lowered his gaze. I'm sorry, Gabriel apologized. Let's leave that aside, let's go wherever we want and find those answers that you need, and according to you, I could save the world, Surziches said seriously, and Azazel just nodded. I can't believe that Issei and that black boy were able to live so many years in this place, said Riaz while walking and looking at the place. It was you who felt it and we are in this situation because of you, Akeno said angrily, for her friend and her entourage only approved. I'm sorry, said Riaz with great sadness. Lower your voice, Azazel said seriously, seeing a monster, and everyone saw that that monster was doing some strange steps. Something that made everyone confused except Azazel, who made him create a large spear of light and throw it at him in surprise. There. What's wrong with you, Azazel? He didn't know we were here, Alex said seriously. You're wrong, he felt our presence and beneath them there were hundreds of those monsters, Azazel said seriously, seeing the crater he made, and everyone saw, and it was true. There were hundreds of those same monsters. There is more than Kaneko said with fear. It's better to go later, there will be many more of that same species, said Azazel seriously, thus beginning to walk around the place again, and they continued like this for many hours. Guys, I'm hungry, said Riaz, and everyone's stomach growled. I want to eat, then kill that monster and cook it, since it is the only thing that is eaten in this place, Azazel said seriously, and everyone was surprised. I circa an apostrophe T believe Issei could eat that, he suffered a lot, Nean said sadly for her beloved. Hey, I've been wanting to tell you something for a while, you have an angel aura, said Michael seriously, and so Nean told him his story about him, and now Michael knew everything. That doesn't matter, we have to eat something to continue searching, said Alex, and everyone nods, so Alex takes out the Ascalon sword. Everyone saw an animal, so Alex launched himself towards it, but what he didn't expect was that animal would give him a powerful kick, causing it to destroy a mountain completely. Everyone was surprised, since they did not expect that a small animal could do that. Then they heard many screams and the earth began to shake. Run, Azazel shouted. Everyone decided to listen to him, and Kaneko picked up Alex, who was unconscious, but everyone saw something that scared him, as they saw how thousands of birds were flying above them, and on the ground, thousands of monsters were following him. We must launch our best attack, use all their power, so that they do not feel our presence, since they are able to sense where we can, Azazel shouted, so that everyone could hear him and everyone acknowledged. Thus Azazel, Michael, and Nean took flight and began to create spears of light of great size. Surzich's and Ria's created a great sphere of power of destruction, but Ria's had already exhausted herself, and Surzich's used all her power and just waited for the signal from Azazel. Now, Azazel shouted, and so the four launched their best attacks, and the laughing entourage only exhausted their energy, so there was a big explosion. Even the place began to shake. Everyone had fallen due to exhaustion, and some rocks had hit them. Covered. The monsters just kept running, but to see that they were no longer there, they just continued on their way, without imagining that they were left behind. But Issei and Black both had created a dimension. In one day 6 months passed since they wanted to increase their power as quickly as possible, so they began to train with all their transformations, since both only had one goal at that time: to defeat Ziko. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.